We've all heard the story of the Titanic, but the truth is, much of what people believe about the ship comes from myths, half-truths, and even Hollywood movies. Today, let's uncover what really happened by separating fact from fiction. Many people say Titanic was famously called unsinkable before it ever set sail. But the truth is slightly different. Before the disaster, the ship was described as virtually unsinkable or designed to be unsinkable. No one loudly advertised it as a ship that absolutely could not sink. That phrase only became popular after the tragedy, when newspapers used it to capture attention. So while Titanic was believed to be extremely safe, the idea of it being the unsinkable ship is more myth than reality. For years, people also believed that Titanic sank in one piece, slipping beneath the water as a whole ship. But when the wreck was finally discovered in 1985, the truth became clear. The Titanic had actually split into two enormous sections before sinking, with one part falling near the bow and the other near the stern, lying separately on the ocean floor. In this case, the truth was even more dramatic than the myth. Another common story is that Titanic didn't carry enough lifeboats because people thought it was unsinkable. It sounds convincing, but the reality is different. At the time, maritime law only required ships of Titanic size to carry lifeboats for about 1,200 people. Titanic actually carried more than the legal minimum, with space for around 1,178. But with more than 2,200 people on board, it was nowhere near enough. The ship followed the rules, but the rules themselves were outdated and tragically inadequate. Then there's the famous story of the band playing "Nearer, My God, to Thee" as the ship went down. It's true that the musicians played until the very end, giving their lives to calm passengers. But survivors disagreed on what the final song was. Some remembered "Nearer, My God, to Thee," while others swore it was a lighter tune called "Song d'Automne." We'll never know for sure which melody echoed across the freezing Atlantic, but one thing is certain: their bravery was real. Movies often show third-class passengers being locked below decks as the ship sank, unable to escape. The truth is more complicated. There were barriers separating different classes, mostly because of health inspection laws. But there's no strong evidence that crew members deliberately locked passengers in as the ship was sinking. Sadly, many third-class passengers still didn't make it, not because of chains and gates, but because lifeboat access was confusing, chaotic, and poorly managed. One of the most haunting myths is that Titanic ignored iceberg warnings. This one is partly true. On the day of the collision, Titanic's wireless operators received multiple iceberg warnings from other ships in the area. The wireless operators were busy sending personal messages for wealthy passengers and didn't treat the warnings as urgent. Captain Smith also chose not to reduce the ship's speed, believing any ice could be spotted in time. So yes, warnings were missed, but not out of arrogance, more from human error and misplaced confidence. Another rumor claimed that Captain Edward Smith was drunk on the night Titanic went down. This is nothing more than a myth. In fact, survivors consistently describe Smith as calm and composed in the final hours, helping others until the very end. And what about the idea that everyone panicked from the start? That too is misleading. Survivor accounts reveal that during the first hour after the collision, the atmosphere was strangely calm. Many passengers refused to believe the ship could actually sink, and some even refused to get into lifeboats, thinking it was safer to stay on board. The real chaos and panic only began later, when it became undeniable that the Titanic was doomed. So what do these myths tell us? They remind us that history is often shaped by memory, newspapers, and later by films that dramatize events for audiences. The truth of the Titanic is still just as powerful. It remains one of the greatest tragedies in human history, and more than 1,500 lives were lost that night. Perhaps the reason the Titanic continues to fascinate us is because it reflects both human brilliance and human mistakes, frozen forever in time. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, then please do like and comment and subscribe our channel. See you next time.